Welcome back, everybody. We have a great podcast here for everybody. It's Joe and I, the Crypto Mavericks, and we have a returning guest, one of our favorite guests to join the podcast. Really happy Matt was able to jump on, but we have Matt Bartlett, who's the head of Web3 at VanEck. You probably know who VanEck is, and he's also the CEO of Segmint. We're going to talk about all sorts of things today. We're going to talk about the overall market. We're going to talk about what Matt's thoughts are in the market. We're going to talk about what he's building, what he's seeing out there. Just kind of chop it up between the three of us a little bit. Matt, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back on. I must have done something right the first time.
No, your last podcast. It was too long. That's the problem. But it was one. Joe and I got off the podcast, and I know a lot of people in our community enjoyed it as well. But we got off the podcast. I was like, man, I like that Matt guy, and you just brought a wealth of knowledge and an authentic. You're very authentic to the world of Web3, and you don't get that a lot in the world of Web3. So anybody that didn't see the initial podcast, I would love for you to maybe just go through your background and how did you get the position of head of Web3 at VanEck?
Sure. So been at VanEck now over 11 years. Was in the sales management side of things. In parallel, I started my crypto journey in 16, and it got to, I think, 21, 22. I was just writing educational content, and VanEck was publishing it. And so it got to a point where Jan VanEck, the CEO, said, "Hey, would you like a new role, head of Web3?" Absolutely. I mean, as much as I love managing people, had done that for quite a bit at VanEck, and then of course at Franklin Templeton before that. So yeah, that kind of kicked off the journey I've been on the last couple of years, and really the main responsibility was to help build out the firm's crypto native capabilities, and Segment, which we could talk about later, was a part of that. But really trying to build out a team so that Jan can come to Matt and say, "Hey, I want to build X," and we could do it, right? And so it's really a fun role, and I get a lot of leeway to go where I want to go.
Yeah, I love that, and you do a great job with it. Van Eck really seems to be paving the way in a lot of within the world of Web3 in a lot of different ways. Give me a little bit of a breakdown. I would love to know a little bit about your personal opinion about kind of the Web3 ecosystem and where we sit here in 2025. This is a pretty broad question, but we have this new
Okay.
administration right now that obviously seemed very pro crypto. We had this pump in these macros, and we have all this tariff news right now, and it's just a volatile time within the world of just crypto. But I do personally feel like we're getting some of the most bullish news that we've seen in a long time, but the price has been chopping or going down. But people in Web3 continue to seem building and showing up every day. What are your overall thoughts where we're headed and what's going on?
Yeah, honestly, my thought, and this is not to be political, it's just sort of State of the Union, is that presidential election that we had, the other side won, we would have been in a different place. I don't know if I would be as optimistic about what we're building, and really maybe the space I'm in. And so of course with Trump winning and what comes with that is really great for my employment, my interests, right? So just sticking on the crypto side. But yeah, we've already seen some sort of decisions being made around meme coins being viewed as collectibles. My whole platform is focused on collectibles, so that's right where that's the news I want to hear. We originally opened up Segment in Europe, fought a lot of different headwinds there. Thought we would get regulatory approval for a fractionalized trading platform. It actually didn't work out, and so the good news is that we're shifting things back to the U.S., where we think we might actually have a path, and we're working with different attorneys and lobbyists to try to get maybe a path so that we can have fractionalized collectibles in the future as one take. But yeah, I mean that's a little bit. I mean that's more about what Matt's been working on and how I'm seeing things. I think for the space as a whole, the tariff wars, hopefully they are temporary. It's definitely going to hit folks as discretionary income, perhaps, right? We won't have as much extra money lying around to invest in JPEGs and be the degens that we want to be. But I do think it'll be temporary, hopefully, and overall we'll come out of this with a stronger economy. Again, I'm speaking from a place of being in the U.S. I know it'll be different elsewhere, but yeah, I'm sort of bullish, right? In my opinion.
There was no tariffs on digital assets still, right, Matt?
I mean, not that I know of, and hopefully not.
Awesome. Well, I'm into the Segment Adventurer. Unfortunately, I'm stuck leveling up. I'm trying to collect some XP now. Can you tell us about that and the marketplace? I know you mentioned it briefly, but can you tell us about how it's going and what's developing there?
Sure. And just for a little added context, we opened up Segment last year, 2024, in February, as a fractionalization platform. It resided under VanEck Europe, which is in Germany. You had to live outside the US. You had to KYC. That in combination of declining prices for our digitally native NFTs made it really tough to find market fit. So we made a decision late last year to pivot, to focus more on a general marketplace, but launch it on or deploy it on Abstract, where Abstract has more of a consumer crypto theme. I don't think anybody has figured it out yet, but you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of projects that are all sort of like having that in the back of their minds, and maybe one of us figures it out. And so moving forward, we're actually, our marketplace goes live this Friday. We'll call it the beta, but it should work well. One of the things that I learned, though, over the last couple of years as a founder is that I focused on building first and community second. And that was a massive mistake. I had this, if I build it, they will come idea, and it didn't work out. And so to fix that, we went community first. And what I mean by that is we held this free NFT mint on Abstract of our adventures. It was free. It traded at one point, the floor might have been well above zero point 0.1 ETH. It's pretty solid. We've had like close to a half of an ETH sale. But that got everyone excited. And then while we were building, we had some fun, as you mentioned, Joe, the ability to level up your adventure, and we had some different reveals, so the visual of your NFT would change. And the natives are restless, if you will. They want to know what's coming. This sort of is buying us time while we're building in the background. But ultimately, we hope to have a marketplace that could be the top marketplace on Abstract and do more than that, but that ultimately the positive vibes that we have with the collectors and the community, it ends up meeting where they're actually using our marketplace, and if they win, we win, and if we win, they win, sort of scenario. That's what we're trying to design. And so what you'll see, Joe, is we've got a fishing game that starts in about 2 weeks. It's sort of like a gotcha vending machine like mechanism, but it's not gambling. It's use the platform, accrue XP. You get to buy bait. You'll go fishing. It's pudgy themed, so it's really fun and it's cute. And you'll catch a fish, and it will come with prizes. And the prizes will either be things like tokenized graded Vibes TCG cards, or you might get part of our new adventure item collection. So that's how we're going to organically push out the new collection through the fishing game. And so we're still trying to gamify different elements of what Segment's doing, but ultimately it'll end up in a collector score. And the collector score is a culmination of all of the stuff that you own, your activity, and if we find product market fit, that would indicate your token claim. So, but really just trying to make it very collector centric. Things like, just to call it alpha, if you will, Joe, but maybe you've heard of it, own doubles of an adventure, own different rarities, own a full set. There's different bonuses for that, all things that collectors like. And so that's how we're going to approach things. And I think even more, we want to try to give utility to the tokenized items where we can. I don't know if you guys have maybe purchased tokenized collectible cards. The first thing that most people do is they redeem it. And it's like, okay, so the person got, they were gonna get a 1% royalty, like it changed hands one time, and then that was it. We want to give the tokens utility, a collector score. Maybe you could play with them in a game, so that they stay in that tokenized state, and they could change hands a few more times, right? So those are some of the things that we're working on.
It's very exciting. The consumer focused mind of Abstract is definitely something that caught my attention. And people are climbing leaderboards, looking to either farm the platform for their eventual TG event. But it definitely, if or when Segment has these a lot of interactions with redemptions and stuff, I can see really catching on because there's so many amazing games that have caught on in abstract. Has that been surprising? I know you mentioned abstract just on the offside here, but that's something that I really love. I know Brian really loves it. We're on it daily. You could tell us about you and Luca. You guys working on something on the side here?
Well. For one, I just want to touch on the games part. Like, I'm mining Bitcoin. I'm playing Cambria. Later on, I'm going to do a stream with a friend of mine, and we're going to stream us hunting artifacts in Cambria. I wish I had unlimited money, and I wish I had thought of Cambria first. I think there's so much fun, So, again, I don't think the everyday user is going to stumble across the portal and start playing games. The onboarding is still a little. There's still some friction, but in my mind, it's like it's okay to start with the Web3 folks now. Work out the bugs. You already have an excited user base, and then we'll find certainly best practices and shortcuts for on-ramping that will help us all down the road. No, in terms of like what we're doing with Luca, I continue to try to support the Pudgy Penguin project. I do own a little Pudge, but we're going to likely have an event at NASDAQ in June. We'll invite Luca to that. Part of the reason for going to abstract, and I hope he hears it, we want to support the Pudgies, and I think that's a great way to do it. It also lines up with what we want to do, right? I mean, there are other low, call it, transaction fee chains out there, Polygon based, but honestly, abstract kind of has the narrative right now, or at least one of them. So, I mean, those are some of the things we're thinking about.
And Luca, if you're listening, we need a segment badge, or maybe that's better poised at Phil or someone else. But we need a segment claim.
We're working on that. I think ideally we have it in May. It might be pushed out, but I think that since we were multi-chain coming into abstract, they really want the dApps that have the badges to be only abstracts. And so, in my mind, I don't I'm all in on abstract anyways. The only reason we left ETH is because the most valuable collections are still on ETH, right? So we're still sort of in the negotiation process there, but ideally there is a badge. And you see some of the numbers, whether it's the gotcha one or Duper, 75,000, 150,000 people signing in to claim a badge. And, I think depending on what you're doing, you're putting $5 into the system for a scratch off, or you're playing for 45 minutes in Duper. We're trying to make ours much easier to get the badge. We just want to get people in, sort of bring awareness to the marketplace, let them try the game, maybe play it twice, make it fun as much as possible.
Yeah, I think it should be a redemption, because I don't know if you did it. I passed it aside as like, oh, who wants a sock, right? When I saw the sock raffle for 500, and I passed it by, and oh my god, the socks went for 3,000, right? I'm not sure if you got a sock badge, Matthew, but I think people having PTSD from that, if you had a redemption, there will be flocks of people in Segment with the RWAs and whatnot. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm going to speak with Jonah later, the founder of Dilly, in a little bit. No, I did not get a sock badge, but certainly pretty cool for those that did.
Talk to me a little bit about Cambria. I know that's not. You just said you're going to be streaming and hunting, and it's a cool little game to be. I haven't gone that deep into the rabbit hole. I've explored it a little bit. But would love to know about. It sounds like you're pretty into it, so I'd love to know about your personal take.
Not an expert. I did do a good 2-page write up on it last fall, because I participated in 2 of the play tests. One play test was just over the weekend. I mean, my family didn't see me. It was so much fun. I was in trying to hunt for artifacts, and then they had one where you could basically wager, put up any amount of money, and fight another character. And it's literally, take it all or nothing, right? So right now, I started. I think this season. I don't know if they're calling it a season, but it's 2 weeks. You pay 0.02 ETH for a charter. It allows you to play with your character, and then you just build it up. I mean, the downside to it is that at the end of the 2 weeks or at the end of that weekend, you always have to start over. The good news is you level up really quick. If you think of something like a World of Warcraft, you're playing months to get to a level 30, 40. I played maybe a full day and I'm past level 60, 70, right? So it goes pretty fast. But it's retro, it's pixelated, it's very fun. And kudos to the team. I think they originally launched on Blast or and maybe another chain, maybe Ronin. I'm forgetting, but it's one of the few games I've seen in Web3 that have done proper amounts of testing, like so many alphas, so many betas, to where they're testing for 2-3 years. I mean, when are we going to see the real thing? But to be fair, like, then you get a really good product this way. So, and I'm playing it, so it can't be that bad.
It gives me Final Fantasy vibes, just that nostalgic cruising around. Are you playing? I got in on Chain Heroes pretty early. Are you playing that at all? Are you involved with that?
Because I haven't played it. Yeah.
Okay, they're similar. I mean, that's not nearly as active as Cambria. That's 5-10 minutes a day. I'm essentially staking my guy, earning some hero, and then it gives you a few different decisions once you occur enough hero to do something with it. But that's similar to what Cambria is. I think Cambria is in the second season, but they had season 1 just completed, and I'm pretty sure you just start from blank again for season 2. But there's going to be a big rollout. But really interested to see how these builders are going to approach, each individual season and also reward the people that got in early.
Yeah, it's funny. Part of the reason why I just started playing it was because it's one of those games where, like, you're going to have to spend real time. You're going to go down the rabbit hole, and you're not going to have bandwidth for a lot of other things. Like, I had been playing, and I still am. I'm playing Vibes TCG, the Pudgy Penguin trading card game. So I play that a fair amount. I mean, there's only one of me, so it's like you can only, and again, I do work for a living, believe it or not. Like,
this is work. This is 100% market research.
Yeah, well, that's what I tell myself. My wife goes, "Oh, so you're going to play games tomorrow for work?" I go, "Well, it's a stream. We're promoting. It's a tough sell." But anyway, yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about So we're with Abstract here. I'm personally liking what Abstract's doing. I do feel like I guess I should retrace a little bit. If somebody not native in Web3, it's hard for me to see them stumble across Abstract out of nowhere. It's typically someone needs to recommend it to them. But once you kind of get into their interface, it is rather easy to use, and it utilizes a few of those apps, and it does have a nice consumer face. Back to Cambria, do you need an NFT to play this game, or can you just do the 0.02 ETH and then you can play with the character?
Well, I believe that charter gives you an NFT.
Okay.
Or is an NFT, so it allows you to play.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the case because I paid for it.
So pivoting a little bit off of Abstract, as you know, Joe and I are big fans of it. Let's talk a little bit about RWAs. I know there's it's projected to hit 500. I'm getting these numbers right, $500 billion in 2025. What do you think's really fueling that trend, and what challenges could be for just widespread adoption of RWAs?
Well, I mean, again, RWAs covers a really wide swath of different ideas, right? It could be tokenized wine, it could be a stable coin. There's a lot of focus on stable coins right now, right? It seems like there's new ones popping up all the time.
Yeah.
We're trying to get more regulation here or some framework here in the US. I think stable coins, if you think of them as RWAs, are going to be the big story. When it comes to tokenized collectibles, we're sort of like figuring that out right now. There's a lot of platforms where you have something, but let's just use a collectible behind Joe as an example. He most likely needs to have a graded item. The graded item needs to go to a third-party vault. Then they can issue the token. And that's great for the world of blockchain because that's what we need for authentication and everything. It's not great for the collector. If it's wine or whiskey, things that belong in a bonded warehouse, the collector, investor, if you will, sort of understands it. Yeah, keep the chain of custody intact, keep it in the bonded warehouse. But a serious collector likes to keep their items. They want to look at them. They
Yeah.
want to enjoy them. And they worry, well, what happens if that company goes out of business? Without saying names, there's a very popular collectibles tokenization platform that was using Brinks. Now they're creating their own vault. Well, Brinks is one of the oldest companies in the US. Now you're talking about a startup having a vault. And so what happens if they go bankrupt? Who's in line to get what? Is Joe's item at risk from being taken by the creditors? It's not ideal. And so where I'm going with this is one of the things that we're working on right now that's differentiated from what's out there is that if we find market fit with our marketplace, we've got the fractionalization still in the background, which hopefully we could do. But the other thing we would like to support is self-custodied tokenization of collectibles, where maybe
Nice.
it's just scanning an item in your possession, create the token, and then we're working through the logistics right now of how one would redeem for the physical item and how would we make sure that it's insured and things like that. So I think that could be really interesting. And we're going to spend a fair amount of time there. Actually, I just brought over someone who used to work at Americana that's no longer around, but knows the business really well there. And so we hope to do something interesting.
Yeah, that's a big field. RWAs. I mean, if you could solve that problem, right now, my experience so far has been exactly what you mentioned: owning fine wines and whiskeys through our friend here at Block Bar. I would love to get some of these assets behind me, tokenized and tradable on the open market. That'd be amazing. And it seems like we're not too far away from that, right? We're getting closer by the day. Talk to us a little bit about how technology has really advanced. Everyone's trying to hop on the AI train. Is there any movement there in your space? Everyone, I want to say everyone, but like every project wants to have like an AI, glorified chatbot or whatnot to help them progress or be in the spotlight right now. What's your thoughts on AI overall?
Well, I mean, unlimited potential pertaining to what we're building. We're having to build out custom tooling for scraping, different APIs and platforms. Maybe it's imagine, Joe, you take a picture of that shoe and the AI knows what year and make and model that shoe is, right? I mean, that would be huge. So I don't think we're definitely not there yet, but you could absolutely see that very soon. And I'm sure there already are some products that are doing things like that, right? I mean, there's apps right now, right, that you can on Apple where you can go out and take pictures of trees and it'll tell you exactly what it is, right? So I mean, maybe things along those lines that could help, some of what we're doing in the Web3 world.
That's so funny that you give that example of a shoe and uploading it to an AI or just a standard chatbot. I think it was this past weekend I was watching the Masters and I liked a shoe that was during an advertisement. It wasn't for the shoe. It was like on Instagram. It was like I don't even remember what it was, but it was a golf shoe. Took a screenshot of my phone, zeroed in, dropped it into Grok or ChatGPT. I go, help me find this shoe. And it just came up with like, this is a limited release by Puma,
That's awesome.
blah, blah, blah. And then it gave me links to buy it. And I was like, man, and
That's
it wasn't,
incredible.
yeah, it was, and it just seemed so simple, but I was like, geez, that really expedited things very easily for me as a consumer. And I really want to buy this shoe now.
What did you
It's,
use for that, out of curiosity?
it was either Grok or ChatGPT. I think it was
Okay. Yeah.
ChatGPT. And I think I just
Nice.
dropped it in there and was like, hey, can you help me find the shoe? I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. And it came up with a slew of information. We've gone down the AI rabbit hole pretty hard. Obviously, the crypto world had that like flash up with a lot of different infrastructure plays and a lot of DeFi AI. Wayfinder recently came out with their prompt token, and Midas and Vulcan, their AI agents. Personally, I do love the idea of integrating AI with crypto. That does
Mhm.
seem like a future to me where AI is just going to help us building crypto, transacting crypto, everything from just Wayfinder. There's a lot of different AI agents out there, but that just help you bridge and swap and make that transition a lot smoother, a lot easier for just a consumer or somebody getting in, but still a little clunky. You still need to
Yeah,
know what you're
sure.
doing. You still need to understand the transactions and what's going on. And then there's this overall trust factor. We're
Hmm.
all very skeptical in Web3, and to give to deposit money into an agent wallet or to give access to one of our wallets to an agent. I don't know if I'm 100% there with a substantial amount of money, but I could probably get onboarded pretty quickly if the world likes it.
Yeah, so back in 2021, and I may have said this the last podcast, but what got me sort of like out of my funk from the previous crypto winter was an AI project called Altered State Machine, where they were democratizing AI with these brain agents. They're actually, I think next week they've rolled into another company called Think. So they're going to do a mint, and I might participate in that. But the thing I wonder is how are these Web3 teams, which maybe have a limited runway, how are they going to compete with OpenAI? How and some of the big boys? That's the only thing that makes me wonder. Like, you could have a great idea and it's decentralized, but how are you going to compete with against those monsters with the amount of funding they have? So we'll see, though. Hopefully they can. I'm curious about it.
Yeah, that's a great call. That's one of my biggest concerns as well, because you have these centralized AI companies that have more money than God, and they're just getting money. I mean, they just throw the letter B behind a symbol. It's like $50 billion investment or $50 billion grant issued. And I'm just like, ooh, that's going to be tough for the independent, decentralized AI world. But we'll see. We'll see. It's obviously AI has been around for quite a while, and the crypto community and AI have been kind of like flirting with each other for a while, but it does feel like over the past few months it's started to intensify. We're seeing more people build in that space, but I have the same similar concerns like ChatGPT and Gemini. Like, my mom's calling me up and using ChatGPT now, and we talked about that like with crypto onboarding, with like how like our parents were calling us to like ask us questions about crypto, and now I'm getting a ton of questions about AI, and it's not the decentralized AIs. It's all like the ChatGPTs or the Googles, or even Grok's pretty cool. I do like Grok with its integration with X.
Yeah, exactly.
The last question I have here is, you live the Web3 world probably more than me and Brian, which is kind of hard to believe. Where are we going in terms of digital assets? We've seen that boom come and go, never came back. Wouldn't say not surprisingly, but to your point about beta, and like NBA Top Shot's been beta for like 4 or 5 years now, and I love them still. When we see luxury goods be a hedge against inflation, with artworks in the real world, and we're not seeing that so much in the Web3 form. We're not seeing digital sports cards pick up as much as we used to. Like, what's the gap there? Is it education? Is it big companies not coming in? And kind of how we bridge that. I know there's a lot of questions there, but I just wanted your thoughts overall.
But when you're saying digital assets, are you speaking to our NFTs, to Bitcoin, to what, or all of the above?
Yeah, probably more specific to collectibles.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. Is with something, with a token that's backed by a physical good, because there is intrinsic value there. It's much easier to explain why that has value over maybe that chromey squiggle, even though I think that's valuable, right? But yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. I tried to explain how I want to turn Segmint into the eBay of Web3 to my dad. Didn't go as well as I thought it would go. Like, this is the value proposition. This is what you get. By the way, Dad, do you know if your item's tokenized, it can always get an offer. It can get an offer at any time. You don't have to relist. I mean, here I am talking to a guy that ran a construction business. He's never listed anything on eBay in his life. It's a tough sell. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. We go back to the abstract thing. Like, for instance, abstract global wallet. What is it really? It's built on Privy. Privy was such an unlock over the last year to get email sign in, social sign in. That was great. We need more things like that, to where they have a Web2 experience. And here's one thing that Luca would say, put blockchain in the back end, less front end. Let it be a Web2 feel. But in the back end, the guts are blockchain. That's really where we need to get if we want to get everyone comfortable up to our level. But that's why I'm saying, I'm not gonna. There's a lot of teams out there that they're like, oh, we've solved for Web2, we've solved for retail. No way you have solved for retail. And if you are, you're almost trying to do two things. You're trying to basically service your existing Web3 customers, and you're building for something. There's no one there yet. So that's why I say just focus on the Web3. Let's get this part right, and then we could slowly take these unlocks that we get, these best practices, and all end up in a place where, yeah, retail gets it. They're on board. They're using it. They're using the different dApps. The portal on Abstract is so huge because it reminds me of the old school like AOL dashboard. You're at this hub. The streaming's a little questionable at times, but what's nice is it is very simplistic in design. It's your wallet. You could discover a couple different apps, and you could watch streamers. Like stuff like that is going to help, right? I just is how long is it going to take? I don't know.
Have you
I think
done
on the Bitcoin part though, Joe, just one thing. I think one of the things that we say in the world of finance is like, when volatility is really high, like the beta of everything sort of like goes to one. Like everything is volatile, and the correlations go to one, right? They almost trade the same. Bitcoin's been a little different lately. Gold's obviously doing its thing because of the world's in distress, but I think that's probably our best shot, is really getting folks comfortable with Bitcoin. I mean, I'm still having discussions. You probably are too, of like, yeah, but it's digital. Like, why it's not real? It's like, the stuff I was talking about 5 years ago, 8 years ago. It's like, all right, it's all part of their learning curve, but we just got to keep going, and that's why it's great to have mediums and content like yours on Apple, right? Like it's so easy for people to consume podcasts. That's the one thing that my dad does listen to, podcasts. So if I could sort of spoon feed him the best of the best bits, he eats it up. Like I sent him the Jack Mallers versus Peter Schiff gold Bitcoin debate. Loved it. Listened to it like 3 times. That's the type of stuff that we need to help people get adopted to it.
It definitely feels like, with all the uncertainty globally, with global liquidity, you could talk about with the tariffs, just uncertainty overall. I understand why risk assets sell off, and people look at Bitcoin and crypto as a higher risk asset, and I understand why gold is going up. But it does start to feel like this should be the time for Bitcoin to start to shine. We have these tariffs. We have wasn't it just last week where even the White House said that they were considering, or they weren't opposed to the US dollar being the global currency, something along those lines. So it does feel like this is the time for Bitcoin to really pony up and start to shine. And I'm hoping we get to that next step sooner rather than later.
Well, my opinion only, not necessarily VanEck. I mean, Bitcoin ran in part because people are thinking Cynthia Lemis's strategic Bitcoin bill is gonna do it. We're gonna be buying all sorts of Bitcoin, but what it came out was we're just not going to sell the Bitcoin that we have, and we still need to do an audit on how much Bitcoin that we have, which we don't know. I think the bullish thing for me is that you're seeing different states, you're seeing other countries vote on and pass legislation to have different Bitcoin reserves. And when people actually look, and forgive me if these numbers are wrong, but I think they're at least pretty close. I want to say there's only like 450 Bitcoin mined per day. And half of that is mined in the US. And if you include the halvings between now and 2035, that 99% date, there might be 1 million Bitcoin mined. But even if we're just being funny, if Trump said everybody who mines Bitcoin in the US has to sell it to the government, we don't have enough. We don't mine enough. So what's going to happen? You're going to have some of these countries start to buy, and we want to go buy 800,000 of them more if we have the 200,000. That's going to put some incredible buy pressure on Bitcoin. And if you overlay that with the liquid supply of Bitcoin across all exchanges, that's at a near time low or all-time low. So like you could absolutely have a supply shock if we get to the point, maybe soon, hopefully, where we do actually have some legislation around buying Bitcoin, having a real strategic reserve where we're making small amounts of purchases each day. because then you're going to see other countries follow suit. You're going to see sovereign wealth funds do it. It's going to end up that the foundations and endowments in their investment policy are going to have a 1% or a 3% allocation to Bitcoin. All of that's going to put pressure on Bitcoin. So I'm very excited about what could happen. Now I don't know, and maybe you guys can tell me. I don't know what pushes it the other way. Maybe geopolitical stuff that or liquidity crunches in our own pockets where inflation gets too high or tariffs are too high and we don't have the income to buy. But even that I would think would be temporary. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I only have one comment on this, which I've been telling Brian and every other stream that I've been on, which is to save money, just don't to not save money, to not be scared of tariffs, just don't buy anything, which causes the negative effect, which is stagflation. But that's something that a strategy that I'm going to employ. But I'll buy more digital assets, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, jumping back on that Bitcoin call, Matt, you nailed it. I do think where we saw that major run up to what, like $110,000. We were all jazzed. We're like, Cynthia's gonna carry us to $1 million by the end of 2025. The United States government's gonna have a 5-year plan on 200,000 Bitcoin, or no, they might hold 200,000 buying Bitcoin, however much that was. And that was kind of baked into the price. And then whenever we got a little bit more news where they were like, hey, we're going to not sell the Bitcoin we have right now. But now you're hearing rumblings out there that they want to buy Bitcoin, but not increasing on taxpayer dollars. And they're talking about allocating
net neutral.
Yeah, gold reserves or gold to it. They're talking about utilizing tariff revenue to buying Bitcoin. I do think if any one of those things would even slightly happen for real, like we get a bill, we're skyrocketing faster than we could ever hear. Every financial advisor out there is going to be trying to acquire some Bitcoin for their clients, states, countries. It's going to escalate very quickly. I'm a permabull. I have a hard time actually seeing a bear case, and that's my downfall. Because whenever I look at Bitcoin going down, I'm like, it's hard for me to really understand unless something fundamentally happened here, like where the code broke or we had a double spend, something happened. But it just feels like everything's just happening for a reason, and we're just consolidating here for one catalyst to just really rocket us up. And like to your point, there's just not enough Bitcoin to go around. You hear the term all the time. Like if every millionaire in the world wanted to own one Bitcoin, they couldn't even do that. We're talking about individual people, not countries and governments and states who have. It's almost short-sighted even looking at it that way. So I do think if we get a strategic Bitcoin reserve, if we get any sort of positive, like we're using tariff money, we're using gold, whatever it is to acquire Bitcoin, there's going to be a lot of people trying to front run the United States. There's going to be a lot of excitement. And I think it's going to be just an absolute insane green candle that day.
Yeah. Look, for people listening, watching, Michael Saylor did a presentation a couple weeks ago, 30 minutes. Again, he is very biased, so take it how you will. But very good, very convincing presentation. I'd encourage people to check that out. And he even said, right, it was something like, whichever country prints money to buy Bitcoin first wins. I mean, it's interesting, I don't know if we need to do that, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Well, it does feel like the countries right now that are definitely exploring Bitcoin are ones that have had some sort of like issue, failed currency, or their governments are having some issues. The El Salvador's of the world. You're not seeing like major established governments quite yet dipping their toes into it for a lot of reasons. But once we get one country that, isn't doing it because, everything else has failed, I really do believe that's going to push us to the Holy Land. And I'll be here for it. I've been continuously dollar cost averaging in. Whenever we get major red days, I am known for buying the blood. So I don't get scared off too easily, but I understand everybody in our audience, everybody that watches you. I understand why there's concern here and there. I understand that we don't have an endless supply of money. We're all have families, But I'm a permabull. What can I say? And everybody watching this should understand that. But it's tough for me to wrap my head around the bear case. Before we go, I definitely want to give this call out because you're a wealth of knowledge, man, and I need to start tuning in on this regularly. I know you have a podcast. What is it? The RWA podcast.
RWA segments. Yeah, it's on
That's
Apple, Spotify. Yeah, it's everywhere. Comes out usually every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
And we try to make it educational, bring on maybe founders of different RWA projects to explain what they're doing. The idea is to really give people relatable stories that they could almost share around the dinner table. Like they're tokenizing uranium or whatever it is. It's just interesting to help people learn. And as you guys know and are trying, it's going to take a long time to help people really understand the space. So this is one way.
Awesome. So we can find that on Apple Podcasts, RWA Segments Podcast. I'm going to start tuning in regularly because I think that's going to be a huge movement in our space. And also, not only we not only want to find the podcast, but how could we learn more about you? How could the audience find you online?
Yeah, I mean on X, it's at Matt Bartlett VE as in VanEck. I'm posting as often as I can, trying to build up the follower base. I've been doing these GM videos pretty often. Did one today, just like little minute shortcuts of things I'm thinking about related to NFTs or RWAs, Web3, etc.
I love that. And that's actually, I follow you and I love your content. So anybody that's watching this has to absolutely follow Matt. He absolutely kills it out there. So give him a follow. And that's actually, I saw some of your content recently. And that's why I was like, Joe, we got to get Matt back on the podcast because I just love what you're doing for the entire space. You're empowering a lot of people out here. And honestly, sometimes I feel like we're chickens with our heads cut off, running around, bumping into things. So it's really nice to have a voice like yours to just kind of like put everything in perspective. Matt, really appreciate you jumping on, and we definitely want to have you on soon. Of course.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again.